Well, good afternoon. You know, in high school and colleges, the worst class to teach is the 1 o'clock class, especially when you know what they ate. They're a bit comatose, aren't they? Yes. So we want to be cognizant of the fact that it's going to be difficult for you to stay awake. So every 15 minutes, we're going to do jumping jacks. Actually, I attended a seminar where they have these techniques that you can use to help wake up your brain. So we'll try some of those about every half hour and see how it works. So first thing I want to say is congratulations. You could have made a choice to go to sleep Sabbath afternoon, which I did not know you Adventists did. That was one of the bad things I learned about you guys. On a holy day, you went to sleep. What's with that? You have a date with God. You go to sleep on your date. You don't get a second date. So I was just amazed. I always want to be alert and studying, and I'll tell you about that later on in the seminar. Things to do on Sabbath afternoon to get your holy blessing to take you through the week. But if you sleep through it, next week's going to be a little rough because you didn't get your full blessing. So I want to encourage you to be cognizant of what Sabbath can do for you if you work with it. So, congratulations, you're here, and I'm excited for you because I know what you're going to learn. That was exciting to me when I learned it. So I hope it is as much rewarding and helpful for you. I want to open up from this statement from the book Evangelism. And this is my opening statement when I teach a health seminar. In teaching health principles, keep before the mind the great object of reform. In other words, what is the purpose for change? She says that its purpose is to secure the highest development of body and mind and soul. Show that the laws of nature, being the laws of God, are designed for our good, that obedience to them promotes happiness in this life and aids in the preparation for the life to come. So we're going to get blessed for right now and for eternity. Isn't that the goal? Yes. I see some hands popping up. I'm going to ask you to, if you can hold your questions to the end. Otherwise, we end up doing questions and you don't get a lecture. Does that have something to do with what we're doing right now? 526. Okay, I'm not going to give you page numbers or anything like that because there's just too much stuff. I've got 4 hours to get here in 3 hours. So questions, just please see me afterwards, or comments. Those who need to leave can leave. Those who want to stay, I'll be happy to engage you for other questions or comments. My clicker isn't down here. Is it up on the platform? Here we go. Now, do not fall asleep. Do you understand? This dubs as a taser, just so you'll know. All right. First thing I have to tell you is that I'm not a medical doctor. I'm simply a teacher. So I cannot prescribe, I cannot diagnose. And you're going to have to check with your doctor if you want to make some lifestyle changes that you may not feel comfortable with. But be sure your doctor is reading the new books and not the old books. If he's reading the old books, you're going to feel old. Make sure he knows names like T. Colin Campbell, Caldwell Esselstyn. If he doesn't know those names, just say goodbye. You need a doctor who's on top of his game and who's on the cutting edge of the material that's going to help you be a better person. I like what John tells us. You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You're going to learn truth today. The way I got my presentation was, Ellen White has 6 books on health. She only wrote 1. The other 5 are compilations. The only health book she wrote is Ministry of Healing. But I have read all 6 books carefully with pad and paper. And whenever she uses a superlative like this must always, you must never, this is important, it got the red star and it went into the lecture. Obviously, I can't lecture 6 books in a few hours, but I am going to give you what she says were serious points. So that's what you're going to get during this whole weekend, is what we're going to do that really is not optional. It really needs to have attention. So I hope you'll take it as prescriptive, and it's not a burden, it's a blessing. It has to do with your attitude. If you think it's going to be a burden, you're not even going to change. And you might as well go home and take your nap, because you're not going to get it. But if you're going to see it as a blessing, then God can fill you. And God can take you to a place where you haven't been before. So that's a very good thing to do. All right? You have to be careful about your sources. And I'm very careful about my sources. Whenever I hear something new, I bounce it off the Bible and Ellen White. And if it doesn't line up, I just throw it out. I don't have to deal with it anymore if it doesn't line up, because I believe that is directly from God. And if it is, then anything else is man and secondary. And so it does not take a priority over what God told us. Some of the information that's out there because of the internet has corporation greed involved with that data, or political agendas. So you have to be careful that it's not a corporation or a politician who's telling you this because they want to make money. You got to be careful that it lines up with the Bible. Now, you may not agree with everything I say this week, and that's okay. You don't have to agree with me. There was a time when I didn't agree with me, but now I found out that it was the truth. But if you don't agree with me, be academically honest enough to show me your research. Give me your proof, because if it's valid, I will use it. I will use it, but I can tell you that for over 30 years, this lecture hasn't changed. I don't know if you know Dr. Ellsworth Wareham from Loma Linda. He was featured in National Geographic because he was in the operating room in his 90s. He just passed away, I think, last year. But what's interesting was his wife, Barbara, was in Canada at a health resort where I was lecturing. And when Barbara heard my presentation, she came home, and it was getting Christmas time, and he said, honey, what do you want for Christmas? She says, I want everything Paul has done. I want his steps to Christ. I want to hear all of his sermons, and I want his health series. And he goes, what else would you like? She goes, that's all I want. I want everything Paul Volk has done. So he got on the internet. He ordered everything that I did. And a couple of months later, I was going to be lecturing in the Loma Linda area. And so I called Barbara up, and I said, hey, Barbara, I'm going to be in the Loma Linda area. I said, if you want to invite your friends to come and hear the presentation. She says, well, where are you going to stay? And I said, I don't know. The pastor will find me a place. And she goes, oh, no. You're staying in our house. House nothing. It was a mansion. I would get lost every other day in that place. I would have to go outside of a door and take a look and get my bearings, and go back in and find my room, because it was an amazing house. But anyway, first night I was there, the three of us were sitting there talking. And then she said, it's time to go to bed. I'm going to sleep. And I said, yeah, it's getting pretty late. And then Dr. Wareham looks at me and he goes, no, I want you to stay for a few minutes. And I said, let's see what's going to happen. So Barbara took off, and he said, we ordered all of your stuff. We've watched everything you've done. I said, I'm sorry. I haven't watched everything I've done. But he said, I watched very carefully as a doctor your health presentation. And I said, good. I need all the help I can get. Do you have any suggestions? He said, absolutely. I said, okay. And he said, do not change a thing. They're absolutely perfect. And I said, could you put that in writing and sign it? And he said, I'd be happy to. So it's on my website. In case some of those snooties get, I said, you know Dr. Wareham, don't you? Here's his letter. So anyway, that was a real blessing to have Dr. Wareham endorse my presentations. Also Dr. Brzee at the General Conference. He attended my lecture in Oregon. Now, when I first saw him I came up to him and I said, could you please critique my presentation? Because he was my homiletics professor in college. But then he got promoted up to the General Conference Ministerial Director for the whole World Division. And he said, Paul, I'd be happy to. He knew me very well because I was the on-campus spiritual leader and I was pastor of the senior class. So I was very, very active, and I was using my power position to straighten some things out that needed straightening out. Anyway, he was taking copious notes in the back. And at the end of the seminar, he says, I'll call you in a couple of days and we'll go over this. And I said, fine. So a couple of days later, he calls me up and I come over there. And he said, first of all, just to get you to relax, I'm going to tell you up front, I am recommending your presentations for the entire world division. I said, with your signature? He said, yes. So anyway, those are just blessings that God gave me. Because I'm not a medical doctor, I need some kind of support. And so these people have stepped up and said, we will give you a signed recommendation. So like I said, if you don't agree with what I say, show me your documents and I'll show you what the Lord has provided for me. All right. I'm a student all the time. I'm forever learning. And so I like to go to seminars. I like to go to presentations. I get books, watch things on YouTube. There's some great stuff out there. One of them I just really enjoy hearing a lot about is Barbara O'Neill. How many of you heard of Barbara O'Neill? Yeah, that's why you're here, isn't it? You know the good stuff. Yeah. She just has wonderful this to keep you awake. Are you doing that on purpose? Anyway, I don't like to use fear, guilt, or shame. Well, maybe a little fear, but I want you to make it because you want to do it, not because you're shamed into it or you're fearful. In the same way, I want you to serve God, not because of shame or you're afraid. I want you to do it out of love because you understand what you're doing. And as I told you before, whatever you choose at the end of this seminar, you will always be my friend, okay? I mentioned to you this morning that my family and relatives, they smoke, they drink, they eat whatever doesn't eat them, but they're still my family and I still love them. And remember, there's nothing you can do to make God love you more, and there's nothing you can do to make God love you less. His love for you is based on who he is, not what you do. Always remember that. He always loves you. So, in making these presentations, we're going to start out showing you things that are good, all right? Whether we're talking about exercise or diet or rest, this is a good thing to do. That will be the hardest step for you to make because you're going to have to go from what? Bad to good. That's the biggest leap. The next two are much easier once you do the first one, all right? So we want to make the first one as easy as possible, and that's why we're going to take you to the good one. For instance, it's better that you're starting to drink 2 glasses of water rather than 5 beers, all right? That's good. What's better is you start drinking 4 or 5 glasses, and what's best is 8 to 10. So we'll show you good, then we're going to show you better. And the reason that the better is easier is because now you're motivated, you're feeling good. And you're saying, well, if this is so nice, why don't I try better? And then when you try better, you're ready for what God has in store for you, which is what? Best, of course. So start making some of those steps. What I want you to do as you're listening over this week is to pick something that you're ready for, something that you're comfortable with. Maybe you're not ready to change your diet, but maybe you could drink an extra couple of glasses of water a day. Maybe you could go to bed a little earlier. Maybe you could take a few minutes walking every day. But pick something that you say, I can do this, and start doing it. Because when you do something that God has asked you to do, 2 things will happen. Number 1, your body is going to tell you, I like this. I like this a lot. And the main thing I think that happens is God can now intervene and tell Satan to stand back. This child is coming down the straight and narrow. They've increased their water drinking. They're going to bed earlier. They're eating more plants. And on it goes. And God can just keep pushing those demons back and saying, out of the way, this child is mine. He's following my program now. So you've got a double incentive, God and your own body telling you. And of course, when your body tells you, your brain is going to get the message too. Isn't that right? Absolutely. Okay. So a number of years ago, I saw this article on a magazine, Parade magazine. Bill Clinton says, I was a heart attack waiting to happen. Do you know what his favorite food was? He took it on Air Force One whenever he went someplace. Big Macs. He loved Big Macs. And guess what? He got his Mac attack. Yes. When Mr. Clinton kept eating those Big Macs, he had a wake-up call. I should back that up a little bit. In 2004, do I have that date right? 2004, he was having some chest pains. Now, this is just a couple of years after he got out of office, where he was president for 8 years. And you know, every year, the president of the United States has to have an annual physical. They do, it takes days. They take blood draws, they do everything that is necessary in order to make sure that he's fit to serve for another year and that he's in the best condition possible. And for 8 years, they gave him a clean bill of health. Mr. President, you're good to go. For 8 years in a row. And then all of a sudden, he's having chest pains. So he went to Walter Reed or Bethesda, I'm not sure which hospital, but wherever the president goes. And he said, look, tomorrow's Labor Day. I've got some speeches to make. Can you see what this is all about? And so they ran some testing on him, and they said, Mr. President, you can't go home. And he said, what do you mean I can't go home? I've got some speeches tomorrow. They said, Mr. President, you have a 4-way blockage in your heart. Now, how did they miss a 4-way blockage for 8 years? That's because some of them are still practicing medicine. And I prefer they not practice on me. I want you to get it right, and then we'll talk. So they said, you could lean over right now and pick up a pencil and die. That's how bad the blockage is. Well, that was a wake-up call for Mr. President. And so he had the 4-way bypass done. And he created an organization called the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. I found out about this organization and I joined it. I am a member of the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. And their goal is to start cleaning up the school lunch programs, which they did. Now, his co-chairman was the governor of California, Arnold. And so Arnold Schwarzenegger and the president, or former president, put in salad bars in all the public schools. They took out the candy and the soda pop machines. You cannot find a candy or soda pop machine on most public school campuses. They're gone. They took them out. And so things were going really great. I was happy to see that all happening, as it should have been happening. And this is a picture I took of Mr. Clinton. When I was up at Lake Tahoe lecturing, he happened to be there at the same time, making talk about how he signed legislation to clean up Lake Tahoe. And so he was up there for the anniversary of that. I saw it in the paper, and I called up the Democrat Party, and I said, hi, my name is Paul Volk. I'm a member of the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, and I see that Mr. Clinton is going to be speaking, and I'd like to come and see him. I don't have a car here. I'm just visiting to lecture. And they said, you're in the Alliance for a Healthier Generation? Oh, sir, you are a VIP. Where is your address? We'll come and pick you up. So they came and picked me up, and they took me to the lecture, and I was just 20 feet away from the president, watching him lecture. And so I took out my picture to take a photograph, and my father was in espionage. And so I know that Secret Service people are very sensitive to any quick movements or anything that comes out that they haven't seen before. So I moved the camera out very slowly. Camera, no bullets. And so when I waved it around a little bit, then I took the quick picture of Mr. Clinton. And the interesting thing was that afterwards he was working the ropes. That means they come by and they shake people's hands. And I was standing there in the VIP section. There were 4 or 5 people ahead of me. And whatever God had in mind, when Mr. Clinton was walking by, he looked right at me and he pushed the people away and he put his hand and shook my hand. So I'm among one of those few percentage of people who have shaken the hand of the President of the United States. But I'm going to tell you the big thing that happened. Shortly after that, he went vegan. So if you'd like me to shake your hand on the way out tonight, we'll see if we can shake some of that cheese out of you. So we're going to show you a clip right now of Mr. Clinton talking about his vegan diet and how it worked for him. He was on CNN News, and I really want you to watch Wolf Blitzer's shocked face. I mean, Wolf will talk about people blowing up and kidnapped and murdered, but when Clinton's talking about vegan, he's going, So have a look at this. Oh, that's right. I guess I get to do it. You set it up, didn't you?
How did you lose so much weight? What kind of diet did you want?
The short answer is I went on essentially a plant-based diet. I live on beans, legumes, vegetables, fruit. I drink a protein supplement every morning, no dairy. I drink almond milk mixed in with fruit and a protein powder. So I get the protein for the day when I start the day out. And it changed my whole metabolism, and I lost 24 pounds. And I got back to basically what I weighed in high school. But I did it for a different reason. I mean, I wanted to lose a little weight, but I didn't dream this would happen. I did it because after I had this stent put in, I realized that even though it happens quite often that after you have bypasses, you lose the veins because they're thinner and weaker than arteries. The truth is that it clogged up, which means that the cholesterol was still causing buildup in my vein that was part of my bypass. And thank God I could take the stents. I didn't want it to happen again. So I did all this research, and I saw that 82% of the people since 1986 who have gone on a plant-based, no dairy, no meat of any kind, no chicken, turkey. I eat very little fish. Once in a while I'll have a little fish, not often. If you can do it, 82% of the people who've done that have begun to heal themselves. Their arterial blockage cleans up. The calcium deposit around their heart breaks up. This movement has been led by a doctor named Caldwell Esselstyn at the Cleveland Clinic, Dean Ornish, whom you know, out in California, the doctors Campbell, father and son, who wrote the China study, and a handful of others. But we now have 25 years of evidence. And so I thought, well, since I need to lose a little weight for Chelsea's wedding, I'll become part of this experiment. I'll see if I can be one of those that can have a self-clearing mechanism. We'll see.
I hope you're healthy for many years and
There we go. He found out the hard way. I don't want you to find out that way. And if you think your doctor is catching it, why didn't they catch Mr. Clinton for 8 years in a row? They didn't catch it. Yes. So you've got to be careful. The medical information you get may not be telling the whole story, and you may not know what's going on inside of your system. The way you're going to know is how you're treating the body. Are you drinking the water? Are you getting to bed on time? Are you eating the right food? That will tell you what this body is like, because they're not going to catch it all the time. Just like they couldn't even catch the President of the United States for 8 years in a row. They couldn't catch it. So I was happy that he did that. You notice he did say a little fish once in a while, so I'm going to have to run into him again and shake the fish out of him. I like this definition that I wrote to define what is health, and I think this covers it. I wrote this down a number of years ago. It's being able to use your mental, physical, and spiritual abilities to your maximum capacity. We all have different capacities in this room. We're not expected to be the same. But I want you to reach your maximum capacity, whatever that is. It's a terrible thing to look back on your life and what you could have achieved, what you could have accomplished, but you didn't reach your goals. Why? Because you made bad choices. Now, sometimes we make bad choices out of ignorance. We didn't know. Other times we make it out of rebellion. So whether it's ignorance or rebellion that you're making your bad choices, I'm here to help you with both of those. Both of those. All right? We can do this together. Making good choices. I liked what Solomon said in Ecclesiastes. The wisest man who ever lived said in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 17, "Why would you die before your time?" And we're doing it, aren't we? We're dying before our time. If you were to call any hospital tonight, asked to speak to the chief of staff about their patient load, any doctor in North America, and pretty much everywhere I've been in the world, will tell you that 80% of the people who are in the hospital right now, occupying hospital beds, are there because of what? Lifestyle. Lifestyle. The only people who should be in the hospital are those who have been in an accident or who had a birth or hereditary problem. The rest of us have no business being in the hospital, but we're filling up those beds because of our lifestyle. If you were to talk to a pathologist who examined cadavers to determine causes of death, pathologists will tell you that 70% of the dead bodies they examined died once again from what? Lifestyle. They could have lived longer. They could have gotten more out of life. They could have given more. But because of their choices, whether it was rebellion or ignorance, they died prematurely. I don't want that to happen to anybody here in this room. You shouldn't have to die prematurely. But if you're allowing yourself to be ignorant, then it's your own fault. You will reap what you sowed. But I want you to sow good, and I want you to reap good. And we're going to do that over this next week. So we introduce people to the 8 doctors that most of you are familiar with. You've seen it on posters and in cookbooks, and it's called New Start. Okay, well, I'll try and see what happens here. The N stands for nutrition, the E is exercise, the W is water, and then the word start, S is sunshine, T is temperance, A is air, R is rest, and the last T is trust in God. Now, trusting in God is absolutely the most important. If you leave out trusting in God, what do you have? Read it. What does it say? It says new star. Yeah. And all you're going to do is burn out. All right? You've got to have that last T, the trust in God. Now, which one do you think is the most needed after trusting God? I'll tell you which one is the next most needed for you. It's the one that you're not doing. Because you see, whichever one you leave out, that may send you to the hospital. Whichever one you leave out may send you to the cemetery. You've got to have all 8 of these developing harmoniously in your lifestyle. And it's not that difficult. We'll show you step by step exactly how to do that. I'm looking at my time. One of the bad habits we need to talk about is snacking, eating between meals. Anybody here snack? Anything between meals? Okay. The bigger the snacks, the tighter the slacks. But the real problem with snacking is what it does to your digestive tract. When you eat food, where does digestion begin? Right here in the oral cavity. You didn't do too good today at potluck. I watched you. That's where I give my lecture. I just watch you. How much you're drinking during your meal, how much you piled on your plate, how fast you're eating it. There's a lecture right there. Every bite you take needs to stay in the oral cavity at least a minimum of 30 seconds in order for the first stage of digestion to occur. If you chomp it 5 or 6 times and swallow it, the stomach says, thanks a lot. Now, why don't you send some dentures down here so we can chew this stuff? Especially starches. You have an enzyme in your saliva that breaks down the starches. If you swallow it quickly, the enzymes didn't get their job done. And those starches went down unprocessed, which makes it more difficult for the rest of the digestive tract. So every bite, 30 seconds. This was probably the most difficult thing for me to put into practice because I attended universities for 7 years and I'm used to eating between classes. I had to learn to slow down and hold every bite. I changed my fork, so I put it in the other hand. So that would slow me down or I would have holes in my face from the fork. Yeah. And then other times I would just put it down, let go, gravity will do its work, and chew slowly and just watch that fork. Don't pick that up for 30 seconds. Leave it there. Don't, no. But it took a while. But I'm getting with that. But I don't like to be around people who eat fast because next thing you know, I'm doing this thing too. Yeah, it's a bad habit. Eat slow. Chew it well. Ellen White says you have to have absolute thorough mastication. This is not an option. She said you have to do this because this starts the first stage of digestion, which makes all the rest work nicely. So in snacking, what happens is another big problem, and that is that when I snack, the food drops down here to the second stage of digestion. It churns around, hydrochloric acid is kicked out, starts to process this, and then special muscles here on the side called sphincter muscles begin to pump the food out and goes through your 40 to 50 foot long digestive tract, your small and large intestine. That's what's supposed to happen. But when you snack, something completely different occurs. So let's say I have breakfast at 7:30 in the morning. I go to work and somebody's got some M&Ms on their desk. You should not eat or listen to M&M. Some of you know what I'm talking about. So you take a couple of those M&Ms and the new food comes down. And while the body was trying to empty out breakfast, what happens to those sphincter muscles that were emptying out when new food shows up? They close. They can't allow the new food to evacuate out until it's been processed. And so breakfast has to wait. And then when those M&Ms get processed, or the strawberry, it can be something good. It doesn't have to be anything bad. It's just anything that new comes down, the body has to hold up everything and get that new food taken care of. But by the time the strawberry or the M&M is processed, next thing that comes down is what? Lunch. And breakfast says, I've been here since 7:30. Lunch says, I know, I can smell it. Yes. We're told exactly the number of hours that needs to be between our meals. Do you know what that number is? Over and over again. One time she says 6, but all the other times she says 5 hours between your meal. Why? Because the stomach is a muscle, and every muscle has to rest. Your heart is a muscle. Do you know it rests between lub and dub and lub and dub and lub? Has to rest. Well, the stomach muscle, every time you hear the word muscle, you have to think rest. If I ask you to jump rope 1,000 times, you might not be able to do it. But if I give you 2 days to do it, you got a chance because you get to rest those leg muscles, don't you? So the stomach muscle has to rest. And it has to replace those digestive fluids that are going to be necessary for the next meal. Has to refill the tank. So that's why she said 5 hours. She didn't know why. God just told her 5 hours. And that's what she put down. And guess what we found out? It's exactly what you need. 5 hours. You know, when I started lecturing 30 years ago, the AMA was really on my throat. But they couldn't touch me because I'm not a licensed medical doctor. I'm a lay person. I can have my opinion. So they couldn't sue me. They couldn't pull my license. I didn't have one. And I never wanted one because I knew that would happen if I did. And so AMA disagreed with me. Some other organizations disagreed with me. I said, I'm standing firm on God. And if you have you take it up with him if you have a disagreement. But you know, 30 years ago when they were arguing with me, today they agree with 95% of what God said. And I can show you outstanding research that I have from Johns Hopkins, Virginia Mason, the Mayo Clinic, Harvard Medical School. They all document exactly what God told us to do. It's all right there. 95% I can validate with current research. I'm not waiting for them to figure out the last 5. I'm going out in faith. So they've caught up. Our medical technology and our medical laboratories are advanced enough that we caught up to God. Nice. I'm glad that happens. My favorite audience, by the way, is medical students. I love lecturing medical university students because when I lecture to them, all they do is this. No argument here because they know their A&P, anatomy and physiology. They know it. They may not want to do it, but they said you can't argue with Mr. Volk. What he said is absolutely sound. It's there. We know now. Because you see, they have fiber optic cameras. It looks like a clear fishing line. It goes down your nose, down your esophagus, and it's like a periscope. And they can watch everything that goes on down there. Brilliant. And that's when they found out, wow, God was right. Interesting. So I'm glad they caught up. But I wasn't going to wait for them. 30 years ago, I stepped out in faith. I got a lot of harassment. I got a lot of threats. And I said, I'm standing with God. If you're not, we have 2 separate paths to go. But now we're getting on the same track, which is wonderful. So try to keep 5 hours between your meals. If you eat at night, you need to wait 3 hours from your last bite until you go to bed. Because if you eat right before you go to bed, that food is going to rot while you're sleeping. Because when you go to sleep, everything slows down. Circulation, respiration, digestion. Everything slows down. And that food is going to putrefy. And you will wake up with a food hangover. Guaranteed. You're going to wake up tired and cranky because the food rotted in your stomach. And it was because of ignorance often. You didn't know that I couldn't eat a couple hours before I'm going to bed. No, 3 hours minimum that you have to wait before you go to bed. I prefer a lot more than that, but 3 is absolutely the minimum. That's why once it hits 7 o'clock, I will not eat after 7 o'clock because I know I'm going to wake up with a food hangover. And I don't want to feel miserable for 2 or 3 days just to eat what you had at 7 o'clock at night. I can't do that. I know what it's like to feel slow and sluggish, like most people. I don't like that feeling. I don't want to be slow, sluggish, and cranky. But by how you do your body, you're going to be slow, sluggish, and cranky. We don't want that. We want something better. Amen? All right. So let's talk about one of the easiest things to get into you, and that is water. That's an easy one to start with. By the way, you shouldn't drink any with your meal 30 minutes before you eat, and not again for about an hour and a half after you eat. When you eat food, you eat food. When you drink, you drink. The two do not get along with each other. The fiber optic cameras have made that very clear. It dilutes your digestive tract, and it makes it difficult for the body to extrapolate the nutrition out of the food, and so all the nutrition goes into the toilet. And so you have a well-fed toilet, but a poorly nourished body. And then, of course, try not to eat at all drink with your meals. And I know some of you were busted. I saw you today. Yeah. So if you have to drink with your meal, a baby step is no more than 4 ounces. Because after 4 ounces, you start doing serious dilution. So if you have to drink half a cup, 4 ounces is the most you should drink with your meal, but preferably with 0. I know some people get these 32-ounce big gulps. I don't know how they do that and eat food, but somehow they struggle through, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're struggling. All right? Now, when we talk about water, we don't want to just do the inside, but the outside of the body. Skin is the largest organ of the body. I know we don't think of it as an organ, but it is. And it has to breathe, and it has to throw off toxins. But if it's not clean, it's not going to do its job, and then the liver and the kidneys have to do a lot more work. So we don't want to overwork them. We want this organ working. And the way you do it is you got to get it clean. Number 1, hot water, as hot as you can stand it. Now, if your sebaceous glands cannot produce enough oil for your epidermis, in other words, you have dry skin, don't take it quite as hot, but take it as hot as you can stand it. Because what happens to the skin and those pores when you put hot water? They open up. Now you can get them clean. The second step is to use a pure soap, not these deodorant soaps, Dial Zest, Irish Spring, all of this stuff. All they're doing is putting more chemicals on and going into your bloodstream. You don't need that stuff in your bloodstream, okay? So you see these clear glycerin soaps in the drugstore? That's usually a step in the right direction. If you can see through it, it's probably a glycerin soap and it's a little better. Go to the health food store, get Dr. Bronner. He's got a liquid soap, comes in different flavors. Don't drink it, just use it as a soap, okay? Then you use a loofah sponge. Do you know what those are? They kind of look like styrofoam. And you rub that on your skin, and what it does is it exfoliates or removes the dead skin. Now the skin can breathe. And then the final step, and this is where the real men come in, you got to end with cold water. Your water isn't that cold here, but it's better than Hawaii. That's not cold at all. But you want to end with cold water and stay under there for at least 30 seconds. All right? Now, I don't stand still. I do a war dance, okay? Hallelujah, hallelujah. Because 2 things happen when that cold water hits the skin. Number 1, let me do the lecture. It closes the pores. But number 2, the blood goes to the surface of the skin and pushes toxins out of the body. And that's what's so wonderful. We'd do this at Weimar Institute. I worked with them for a while. And they would take patients and they would put them in the treatment room. They'd put them in a hot sauna and then a cold shower. Hot, back and forth 2 or 3 times. And then they would take them into a rest area, wrap them up in a white sheet, and tell them to lay still for 30 minutes. And their white blood count will skyrocket because of the hot-cold treatment. And they sweat like crazy. And they always know when they got a cigarette smoker in those sheets. Because guess what happens to those nice white sheets? They turn a yellow-orange color. Why? Yeah, a lot of people say nicotine, but nicotine is clear. It's tar. You can see the tar coming right out of their skin, staining the sheets. And so that's why I never get into a jacuzzi, because there's gallons of sweat in that jacuzzi. And who knows what's in that sweat. Sauna, that's fine. Jacuzzi, I ain't sitting in gallons of sweat. Whoa. And so, especially if they're not healthy, okay? So, these are the steps. If you'll follow that, you should come out glowing like a lobster. Otherwise, you're going to feel like a shrimp, okay? 4 simple steps, detoxifies the body, gets those pores so they can do their work, so the other organs don't have to take up the slack. Very simple. Try it. You'll find out you feel so refreshed. After the cold shower stops, yes. And like I said, you don't have to stand still and grit your teeth. Just keep moving. All right. Now, in Revelation 21, it talks about water. And although H2O is important, what's more important is that living water from the fountain of life. And Revelation 21 says, I will give of the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts. And the last chapter of the Bible, Revelation 22, let him who thirsts come. Whoever desires, let him take the water of life freely. You see, the H2O, used properly inside and outside, is to help us get to the water of life. That's where we're headed. We're not just, H2O is not the goal. It's the water of life. That's where we're headed. That's what we want. So if we use the H2O, it'll help us to get to the water of life, which is not available right here. But H2O is. That's what God gave us. So let's use it inside and outside properly to get us to the water of life. Ecclesiastes says something very interesting. In chapter 11, verse 7, it says, it is good to see the sun. And when I read that, I said, well, sure, it's bright out and happy out. It's good to see the sun. Oh, no. There's a lot more to the sun than we think. And if we take good use of that sun, we will get that advantage. Dr. Neil Nedley from Weimar Institute said, if you can be out in the sun first 30 minutes in the morning, it will set your circadian rhythm, your body clock, for the whole day. 30 minutes first thing in the morning when you get up. You don't stare at the sun, but you're just out there. I take my Bible out there and I read, or I'll pray for 30 minutes. So I get that morning sun and get my body clock going in the right direction. First 30 minutes in the morning. Now, I know some people are very concerned about skin cancer. Do you know that skin cancer is almost unheard of in vegetarians? It's the meat eaters that get the skin cancer. Because when the angstrom units of the sun penetrate the epidermal layer of your skin, if there is animal fat in your diet, it can have a cancerous result. It does not react to vegetable fat. The sun has no problem with vegetable fat. It has an issue with animal fat, and it can cause cancer in your system. So why take the chance? Obviously, if you're blue-eyed blonde, you have to be more careful about the sun. If you live near the equator, noon sun especially, usually from 11 to 1 o'clock or so, I do my shopping, I clean my house. But morning and afternoon, I'm outside exercising. I'm outside reading my Bible, doing yard work so that I can have the benefits of the sun. Minimum that you need is at least 15 minutes a day. That's the minimum, 15 minutes a day to be out in the sun. Now, what are the benefits for being out in the sun? Well, for one thing, it's going to lower the serum cholesterol in your blood because it converts cholesterol to vitamin D. That's what sunlight does. And most Americans are vitamin D deficient because if you live north of Phoenix, there's no vitamin D. And so we have to recommend that people take vitamin D capsules. But that's why 6 months out of the year, I'm traveling south. Last year I was in the Philippines. The year before that, I was in Florida. So I always head south from Alaska during the wintertime because if I have a color change, you can see the brown and the white. That means my body is still extrapolating vitamin D out of my skin. It stores for quite some time. So if I'm out of that Alaskan state for 6 months out of the year, I've got my vitamin D. So it'll convert it to vitamin D. It'll increase your red and white blood cells. It'll destroy bacteria on your skin and in your house. I can't tell you how many homes, I would say 90% of the homes that I walk around in my neighborhood have their blinds and their curtains closed. And I would hate to live in that house because it's toxic. The sun will disinfect your house. Ellen White says, do not put any trees, any shrubs, any bushes in front of the windows. Let the sunlight in and purify your home. But I can tell you, over 90% of the homes I see in my neighborhood, no direct sunlight in their house, which means it's a very toxic. You've created a sarcophagus. You're living in a coffin. No light. Get that sunlight in your house. Get it on your skin. All right? It cleanses it. And twice a year, I take my mattress outside and I leave my mattress out all day so the sun will disinfect my mattress. My pillow every week. I put my pillow out every week so that it will disinfect. You've got to realize you spend a third of your life here. You've got to get it right. And that's why Ellen White says the bedroom, the sleeping room, she calls it, is one of the most critical rooms of the entire house. Most people pay no attention. And they don't realize they're spending a third of their life getting sick, and it's affecting the other 2/3 when they're awake. Get that bedroom set up straight. And we'll talk about that a little later when we talk about rest. So get the sunlight in the house. It'll destroy bacteria, heal injuries. It'll increase circulation and perspiration. And for you ladies, sunshine helps balance your hormones. And we men want that to happen. Yes. So you just take them out there for your own sake. Come on, honey, let's go for a little walk here. We need to get some hormone training here. Yes. All right. When you talk about light, I love this about the Bible. You know, we have the S-O-N and we have the S-U-N. Be sure you're using both. As far as the S-O-N, Son of God, it says, walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. He who walks in darkness does not know where he is going. Walk while you have the light. Believe in the light, that you may become sons of light. So we have the S-O-N and we have the S-U-N. Use both of them liberally. It will benefit you. All right, air. Very important. You're going to have to decide where you're going to live because that will determine the air quality that you have. The body loves negative ions. Negative ions are in highest abundance at the ocean and in the mountains. And isn't it interesting through Scripture, where is Jesus often teaching people? By the sea and in the mountains. Because that's where the negative ions are, and that's when you're most receptive to being balanced and learning. So he taught them by the water, and he taught them by the mountain. The city produces positive ions. The body does not like positive ions. I have friends in Los Angeles, they buy negative ion machines. You can actually buy them. Plug them into their house. They said it makes a world of difference. They also make them to plug into the cigarette lighter. And you guys in Phoenix need a lot of those. Whoa, tough city, man. I'm thinking of moving here, but the more I keep riding around in Phoenix, I'm going, I'm not so sure. I need to move way out of town a little bit here. So, but I am looking to move down here. I have a realtor looking for me. I'm looking to sell my place up in Alaska, but I'm letting the Lord decide where I should relocate. A couple of winters ago, I spent in Florida. I had 2 realtors looking. They couldn't find anything I liked. They said the bubble is too big. Houses are $100,000 over their price. So anyway, I'm just going to have to wait till the Lord opens the door and he makes it clear. So keep that in mind in your prayers for me. I would appreciate that, where I need to relocate to have a good mission. The first issue is, am I going to be a more effective missionary in this location? That's the number one criterion. And things are looking quite nice here. Next month, I am booked every weekend. That's never happened to me, but it's really happening here. And your conference is backing me up. This is the first time a conference has backed me up. In 30 years, no conference has ever endorsed me. No conference has ever published flyers for me, but your Arizona conference did that. And I want to thank Dr. Woods. Am I allowed to say that? because she heard me a couple of years ago in her little church. And now that she's in the conference office as health director, she said, hey, this guy's good. Yeah. So anyway, if Lord wants me here and I can be very effective, this is where I land. But it has to be his decision, not mine. All right. So with the air, you need to breathe through your nose. All right. Nose breathing is important. It filters the air, it moistens the air, and it gets it to the correct temperature before it hits the bronchial tubes and goes down into your lungs. Most people do shallow upper chest breathing, and these lower air sacs never get cleaned and they never get exercised. When they take lung x-rays, most of the problem shows up in the lower third of the lungs because of bad posture and lack of deep breathing. So I like to do deep breathing exercises, but my time is quite limited here. But just to say, every morning at least you should put your hands on your hip or lock your fingers behind your head so that you lift the rib cage and you take a deepest breath as you can and hold it for at least 30 seconds, and then you blow it out through your lips because that causes the lungs to compress and clean them out. So you have clean, healthy lungs with oxygen sweeping through and making it nice. So good, deep breathing. Actually, we should probably do that right now because you had too many desserts at lunchtime. Let's stand up right now and let's do a couple of those so that I don't lose you. We're getting into some critical information here. So either put your hands on your hip to lift your rib cage or lock your fingers behind your head. I'm going to count to 10. And during that time, I want you to inhale slowly through your nose. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exhale. Somebody had garlic. Let's try one more time through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exhale. I used to teach sports aerobics. So now we're ready to do some action, but we won't do that here. Let's have a seat. Yeah, I taught my sports aerobics class. My students gave me a nickname. They called me the Energizer Bunny. Man, when Paul gets going for that hour, he just boom, 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 doesn't stop. Yeah, and that's because I got good arteries, providing all the oxygen and fluids that I need to perform. Whenever I exercise, I never get tired at the end of the hour. I'm never tired, I just stop. I can swim for an hour nonstop, okay? I can run for an hour nonstop, and I'm never tired at the end, I just stop. I'm sweating, I'm breathing hard, which is good, but I'm never tired. I need to sit down. No, I'm energized. Body says, yeah, more, we like this. Okay, so try to maintain good posture. An easy way to remember this is to pretend that there's a hook right here in your sternum, and you're being pulled by that hook. When that hook pulls your sternum, your head goes up, your shoulders go back. All right? Now your lungs can start working, and you've got good posture. So just put that hook in your sternum and let that hook pull you first, and you'll automatically have good posture. And the nose breathing is important because right here at the bridge of your nose are special cells. They're called nitric oxide cells. And when you breathe through your nose, those nitric oxide cells come alive, and when they come alive, they cause your lungs and your arteries to dilate. Isn't that brilliant? They'll dilate. That's why when God breathed into Adam his first breath, it says he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, because God knew what he put there at the top, nitric oxide cells. And when that air went in there, those nitric oxides told the lungs and the arteries, get up, open up. Our air's coming in, we want all we can get. This is brilliant. I just love the way God does things. All right. What time am I supposed to finish? I forgot to look at the 5:15 a.m. or p.m. a.m. There you go. There's an A student right there. You get the gold star. All right. The rest of your days is going to depend upon the rest of your nights. Did you catch that? The rest of your days is going to depend upon the rest of your nights. Yes. Now, David told us, most importantly, we're to rest in the Lord. That's the most important. Sabbath rest is very important. Jesus says, come unto me, all you that labor are heavy laden, and I will what? I'll give it to you. You just come to me. I'll give you rest. It's mine to give. You want rest? Come to me. I'll give it to you. Of course, we know there's a warning in Revelation 14:11. They have no rest day or night who worship the beast and his image. And believe it or not, some of my own brothers and sisters in the Adventist church are worshiping the beast or his image, and they don't know it because they haven't educated themselves as to what the beast is or his image. But they're worshiping him without knowing it, and they will have no rest day or night. It will be an unhappy life, worshiping the beast or his image. All right, so how much sleep do you need? The average really is about 8 hours. You should not have to wake up to an alarm clock. If an alarm clock wakes you up, that means your body clock is not working, and you need to make some changes. I want my body to wake me up. I like to be sound asleep, and all of a sudden my eyes pop open and say, good morning, Lord. Here we have another day ahead of us. People to meet, things to learn, things to do. I'm so excited. What are we going to do today? And the first thing God knows is 1 hour in his holy book. That's a holy book written by a holy God for a holy people. You need to read it. It works. So, 8 hours is about the average. The way God set it up is when the sun sets, your brain begins to release a chemical to put you to sleep. Yeah, it actually happens. Starts to bathe the brain and make you sleepy. That's why you should get to bed by 9 or 9:30 at the latest. I know that sounds early for some of you people. It was a struggle for me too. For a long time, my 10 o'clock was my nighttime. But now I'm getting closer and closer to 9 o'clock. Because when you get to bed at 9 o'clock, there's something that happens around 10 o'clock that cleans your brain. But if you're awake, the process won't work. You have to be asleep by 10 o'clock in order for that cleansing to occur in the brain. Your brain does a lot of cleaning so that it will have more material to use the next day. You know, if you're standing at a light and you see, oh, that lady, she's got a really nice yellow dress on. Well, do you remember that the rest of your life? No. So when you're asleep, you know what the brain says? Get that yellow dress stuff out of here. We don't need that. You know, get that cop that was turned the siren on you, get it out of here. And it does. It wipes it out. You said, you remember that lady in the yellow dress? No, I don't remember that. Well, it's because your brain was cleaned. Unnecessary information. It takes it out so that you've got more room and more brain cells and more synapse boutons that's going on in your brain because you're getting all of this trivia stuff out. You know, you saw a bug walk across. Brain says, get that out of here. We don't need to remember that bug walking across. See how this goes? I'll tell you, when you learn all this stuff, it's just so exciting. You can hardly sleep. Anyway, try to get to bed by 9 or 9:30. And then when the light comes in, the brain releases another chemical to wake you up. And that's what wakes you up is the light. Now, Thomas Edison messed everything up because we got light 24 hours a day, don't we? Yes. So what we want to do is try to get to bed on time. And, well, let's take a look on how we should set up our bedroom. By the way, if you need to take a nap in the afternoon, that's okay, but not these 2-hour siestas. Your nap should be just 15, 20 minutes. It shouldn't, if you're taking 2-hour ones, there's something wrong, okay? A nap is just 15, 20 minutes. That's all it should take you to recoup if you stressed yourself out or overextended yourself. Just take a little nap. Do calm things at night. Preferably be careful about what you're watching on television. Yeah, because that's a whole nother lecture. But to set up your bedroom to get good sleep, one of the things you have to do is to make sure the room is as dark as possible. Because as I said, when light comes into that room, it goes into your retina and it wakes your brain up. So that's why when someone comes into your bedroom and they turn on the light, what's your first reaction? Turn out the light. Turn out. Yeah, because you realize the longer you see that light, you're going to toss and turn to try to get back to sleep again. because the brain released the chemical saying, sun is up. Well, the sun wasn't up. Thomas was in the room. Thomas Edison. So you want it as dark as possible. You want it as quiet as possible, because every time the ear hears a sound, it has to wake up the brain to tell it what the noise is. Now, you get accustomed to some noises and you can sleep through it, like your cat meowing or, certain noises. Some people can sleep by a train station, not me. When I sleep, I want to hear my hair grow. That's how quiet I want it. I like it. Yes. So you want it quiet. You want the air circulating in your bedroom. If you close your bedroom window and you close your bedroom door, you created a coffin. And I'll guarantee you'll be tired in the morning because the room is oxygen depleted. All you're doing is breathing exhale. And if you're married, it's gone twice as fast. Think about it. So my home in Alaska, I never close my bedroom door. It's open 24/7. I don't even need a door to my bedroom. That bedroom door stays open all the time. My roommate's a guy, it doesn't matter. So I keep mine open. And then in the wintertime, it's a little tricky. What I have to do when it gets really cold out is a couple of times a day, I'll open up all the doors and windows to let my house get a gulp of air. And then I'll close them real quickly, just after 5 minutes. Because if I'm breathing a house that's all closed up, I'm breathing dead air, aren't I? There's no life in that. So let your house take a deep breath every once in a while. And here in Arizona, you can do that a lot. Now, I know when it gets hot, that's when you close the doors about 10 or 11 o'clock, because it starts getting those triple digits. So you have to turn it around. In Alaska, in the wintertime, I do have to close the bedroom window because it's 20 below out. It was just that last week. And that's why I'm here. And so my poor roommate, he said, oh, you know how cold it is? I said, you know where I am? It's 60 degrees above. So anyway, what I do in the wintertime is when I wake up in the middle of the night to get rid of some of that water, is I open up my bedroom window, go do my business, which just takes a couple minutes. What happened? My bedroom got a big gulp of air, and then I close it, and then I can sleep the rest of the night. So in the middle of the night, I open up my bedroom window so that the bedroom, my sleeping area, will be fresh, air circulating. She said, you need to keep circulating air in the house all the time. Don't just let it go stale and dead air on you, or you're going to be tired and lethargic and cranky because you're not breathing any live, fresh, living air. It's all exhale that you're drinking or breathing. So let's see, what else for the bedroom? The bed should be firm enough to support you, but gentle enough to be comfortable. Your pillow, if you sleep on your back, very few people do, but it has to be very thin. If you sleep on your side, which most people do, it has to be thick enough to support the head away from the shoulder. And I use one of those foam ones that are very gentle and very comfortable. Your covers need to be lightweight. You're going to toss and turn about 40 times a night. If you don't, you will develop bed sores and blood pools, and those are very painful. So I never tuck my sheets or bed on the side. I always let them hang over. I tuck the ends in so my feet don't pop out. But that's the only thing I tuck in, because I want plenty of freedom of movement while I'm sleeping, and I don't want those sheets tugging at me while I'm trying to sleep. So I let it drape over the side so I get no resistance while I'm moving the 40 times or so while I'm sleeping. So hold your thoughts and questions at the end, please. I'm going to nail you. All right? So that pretty much, if you want to get extra oxygen in your room, there are 3 plants that NASA discovered remove more toxins out of a room and provide more oxygen. Thank you, NASA. And those 3 plants are the philodendron, the spider plant, and the golden pathos. Any one of those 3. I don't know necessarily, I know the spider plant, but the other 2 I'm not too sure about. You can go to a nursery and say, I need this, I need that, and put that in your sleeping area, because if you have that in, it removes more toxins and provides more oxygen into the room. All right? Okay, remember what I said, and I'll say it one more time, and then we're getting the taser out. Comments and thoughts at the end, please. Otherwise, we get bogged down in you, and we don't get the lecture done. I've done this for 30 years. I know what the rules have to be. And you have to keep questions and comments to the end, which we're happy to entertain after the lecture is over. But people are here to hear a lecture, not your comments or questions. And we need to get this information. It's too vital to get drugged down in questions and comments. Are we clear on this? I'm not trying to be rough, but as a teacher, I'm going to be firm. I can't teach if you keep making comments or asking questions. This information has to be gotten out to everyone. Your comments and questions, we're happy to deal with at the end of the presentation. I think that's only fair. Isn't that right? All right. Thank you. All right. So we need to rest every night. We need to have a Sabbath rest every week. And we need to have a vacation every year. I've had people tell me, oh, Paul, I haven't had a vacation in 10 years. Well, shame on you. Your body needs a change of schedule at least once a year. Now, I include my vacation with my travels. When I was in New Zealand, I did vacation too. I went to the beach. My favorite thing, if you don't know, in exercise is running barefoot on the beach. There's nothing, I'm in nirvana when I'm running barefoot on the beach because that water is crashing. I'm being smothered by negative ions and all that fresh air and the sunlight. I have to force myself to stop after an hour. I don't know how long I would run, but after an hour, I stop. And I am the most refreshed and the most exhilarated after running barefoot on the beach. So I'm wanting to get down to Rocky Point before I leave. So if anybody's going, you let me know. I'll pay for the gas and even make lunch and push. So my friend said Rocky Point's about 3 hours away. Is that right? Let's do it. All right. I'm free during the week. The weekends, I'm pretty tied up. But during the week, we can sneak off to Rocky Point, okay? So, I have to tell you now a little break here on the potato chip story because Dr. Brzee from the General Conference, he said you have to tell that at the opening seminar. And I said, that's about nutrition. That's the next night. He said, tell the potato chip story opening night. I said, okay. We'll tell the potato chip story. So, here we go. What time am I done again? Okay. By whose watch? All right, potato chip story. I used to love potato chips. But I know what they are, and so do you. It's a lot of grease, a lot of salt, and a little bit of potato to hold that together. Isn't that right? So I hadn't eaten them for years. And I was working with Country Life with one of their outposts. Have you heard of Country Life? They're a chain of vegan restaurants. They're all over the world. And I've been to several of their restaurants, speaking in France and in New York, Los Angeles. Anyway, we are having a guest coming in from France because he wanted to see our operation and what we did. So he was assigned to the house where I was living at. His name was Gilles Lopin. And when he got there, we got to be acquainted and we were worshiping together and studying together. And then I got a notice from the director and he says, Paul, we need you to go to the Hopi Indian Reservation in Arizona. They're having some real health problems and I can't figure it out. And so we told him we would send you down there. All I have to do is observe for a day or two and then I can tell you what your problem is. I did that at a convent. The nuns were getting sick and Mother Superior says, we need help. Get Paul Volk, he's here, go get him. And so that's another story. Anyway, I told Gilles, I said, I'm going to be gone for a week because I'm going down to Arizona to this Hopi Indian reservation. He says, where is this? And I showed him where it was at. And he goes, Paul, you go to the Grand Canyon. And I said, oh, yeah, I guess I do. And he goes, oh, Paul, please, I want to go with you. And I said, well, it's just a big hole. I had never seen it before. And it is a big hole. Some hole, but... And he says, Paul, please, can I go? And I said, okay, Gilles, we'll detour through the Grand Canyon on the way out to the reservation. So one of the things I knew that he liked was American potato chips. He said, oh, Paul, we have nothing like this in France. I love the American potato chip. And I said, I know, it's really tasty. He says, but you don't eat this, do you? I said, no, I don't eat it. But I remember it was tasty. So anyway, we head down to the Grand Canyon, and we stopped off in the market to get some food for a picnic, because you don't want to buy anything in the canyon. It's triple digits. So he says, I always in the car, get the food. So I went in, got a bag of groceries, came out. He says, "Wow, what do we have for lunch?" So I showed him the apples and the peanut butter and the whole wheat bread. And then I took out a little tiny bag of potato chips. And he goes, "Ha! Très bien, merci beaucoup. American potato chip." And I said, "I know." He said, "Oh, you bought this for me." And I said, "Yes." He goes, "You're my friend." And so I said, "Well, here it is." Well, he was so excited he couldn't wait. He opened up that bag right there in the car. And potato chip aroma started filling the car. And my olfactory glands started working. And my eyes started tearing up. And then he started eating the chips in the car. And potato chip breath filled the whole car. And after a couple of minutes, I said, "Give me that bag." And I finished it off. When I got back home and I moved to another location, I was asked to be a health director in Port Townsend, Washington. We had a Better Living Center, and I was there for about 10 years. I loved it there. I wanted to stay there till Jesus came, but Jesus had other plans. So anyway, I was there, and I got to have quite a bit of a reputation at that city. I was on first name basis of both mayors who were in office. The editor of the paper was a good friend of mine. He said, "Whenever you go on a mission trip, you take lots of pictures. We'll publish it in the newspaper." You know, I was graduation speaker 3 years in a row at the public high school graduation speaker, which ended up having lots of Bible studies because those students said, "This guy's got something we got to have." And so the parents would call me up and say, "Do you have Bible studies?" And I go, "Sure." They said, "When?" "Tuesday." "What time?" 7 o'clock. Carloads of students would show up at my place. I had to break them up into 2 different days. There were so many of them. And I got 2 nicknames that I liked both of them. Some people called me Mr. Granola, and the other people called me the Barefoot Runner. Because where I lived in Port Townsend, we were right near a lighthouse. And I would drive just a few minutes to the lighthouse, and I would run barefoot all the way out to the lighthouse and back. And there used to be kids like cheerleaders yelling and trying to run up and keep up with me. It was just amazing. I just really loved it. And then within a few years, I was elected an officer of the Ministerial Association of pastors of all churches, Sunday churches and everything. I was elected an officer of the Ministerial Association, which was a high honor. And then I was, well, we won't go on to that. We're getting a detour, get back to the chips. So I was living there in Port Townsend, and I was stuck on these potato chips. I couldn't quit them. I would go to the store, and I would stand in front of the chips, and I would look both ways, because people knew I was in the paper. They knew who I was. But I would grab those chips, dash down to the cash register. She said, "You want that in a paper or plastic bag?" I said, "Paper, quick. Got to hide my drugs." Well, one day I went down there, potato chips were on sale, got a big bag of potato chips, put it in the paper bag. I was walking home, and where the Better Living Center was just up the hill from park, picnic area. And so I walked by the park coming home, and I walked by this trash can, and my guardian angel thumps me. He said, "Throw those chips away." I said, "Say what?" He said, "Throw those chips away." I said, "My money, my chips. I'm eating them." He said, "Throw them away." I said, "No." He said, "Now." I said, "Ah!" And I threw them away. I pouted all the way home. Got home, ate my dinner, got involved with a bunch of things. And at 9 o'clock at night, all I could think about was that bag of potato chips in the trash. And in the cover of darkness, I snuck back down to that park, and I dug around that trash can, and I found my chips, and I threw them under my shirt, and I ran all the way home, and I opened up that bag, and I ate the whole bag at 9 o'clock at night. And I said, "Lord, this has got to stop." And he said, "Now you're ready." Now I want you to follow me very carefully on this next part. And this is why Dr. Brazee at the General Conference said, you have to tell this story, your opening program. God said to me, "Paul, you and I are doing so many amazing things together. You love having worship and Bible study with me. You love giving Bible studies. You love serving the community, exercising. You eat amazing food. there's one little sliver that the devil is telling you that's who you are, a potato chip. God says you're doing so much more than potato chip. I want you to focus on what you and I are doing. And as long as you're having a devotional life, I'll take care of the chips. Did you follow this? All right? As long as you are having a devotional life and keep thinking about what you and God are doing instead of the devil making you think, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. And I think, yeah, you're going to hell. Get out of my life. So focus on what you and God are doing, and as long as you're having, now that's the caveat, you have to be having a devotional life for this to work. And as long as you're having a devotional life, he who began a good work in you, the Bible says, he'll finish it. Let him finish it. All right? You just keep doing what you and God are doing as long as you're having that devotional life. So anyway, yeah, those potato chips were quite the struggle until God let me know, Paul, you are a lot more than potato chips. You're a lot more than those few minutes of pornography you're watching. You're a lot more than that one beer that you're drinking. You're a lot more than the anger that you demonstrate a few minutes a day. You're a lot more than that. And don't let the devil keep throwing it into your face. You keep running to God and focusing on him and having that devotional life. Amen? Focus on that. And we'll be talking about that next Sabbath, the devotional life. Because that will be the last message I give you. And the reason it's the last message is because that's what most people remember is the last message. And I always arrange it that my last message is developing that walk with God. Because that will get you through all the rest. All right. So, what you and I are going to have to do, and this is what I tell the high school kids at graduation time. I can remember the first time I spoke. I said, it's graduation time. Yeah, it's time to go. Yeah, where you going? Ugh. I said, you need to sit down right now, just like those students, and set up your priorities. Now, there are only two things in this world that are important, and I'll say this over and over again in the seminar. There's only two things that are important, God and people. Everything else burns. Everything else burns. The only two things that you should be investing in is God and people. Simplifies your life, makes it meaningful, gives it purpose. So, busy. People get caught in the rat race. And even if you win, you're still a rat. All right? I have family members who are very wealthy, but they're not happy. Lots of money, lots of toys, lots of homes, boats, planes, but they're not happy. And I know they're not happy. So I try to share with them and I try to witness to them whenever possible. Seems like whenever we had a big family gathering, all right, Paul's going to have the blessing. Paul's going to give you a sermonette in that blessing. This is the only one you'll hear. So, priorities. We've got some of the wrong priorities, don't we, in life? Jeremiah warned us about this. Jeremiah is known as what prophet in the Bible? What was his nickname? The weeping prophet. Why was Jeremiah weeping? Foolishness of God's people, isn't that right? They'd repent, go back. Repent, go back. A couple of months ago, I was going to read the book of Jeremiah again. I got halfway through it, and I say, Jeremiah, we're going to talk about this in heaven. I don't need to read this anymore. Just too much. Very discouraging. I identify with Jeremiah because once you know too much, you see all the mistakes. And you wonder, why are we doing this? Didn't you read this? Have you finished the Desire of Ages? Have you read Steps to Christ? Did you read the book Evangelism? Did you read Gospel Workers? Read these books, and you won't be doing what you're doing. You won't be acting the way you're acting. And so I see it happening. And I'm going like Jesus did on the cross. Father, forgive them for what? They not know what they do. They don't know. And that's why I go around trying to educate people, trying to teach them so that you know what you do. So anyway, Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 23 gave us this big warning. And most of you are familiar with it. Jeremiah 9, 23 and 24. Thus says the Lord. So who's speaking here? It's not Jeremiah. He's quoting God. Thus says the Lord. Let not the wise man glory in his wisdom. Let not the mighty man glory in his strength. Let not the rich man glory in his riches. Well, isn't that what we glory about? I mean, what's happening next Sunday? This Sunday. Super Bowl. Is that what they call it? Yeah. I don't even know who's playing. I don't care. I don't know their shoe sizes. I don't know their mother's maiden name like some people do. Okay? If they knew their Bible like they knew their football, they would be Bible scholars. Anyway, we get caught up and we want to know who won the Grammy, who won the Oscar, who won the Grand Prix, who's the Fortune 500 magazine cover, all of these things that we give attention and honor to. And Jeremiah said, no, don't. No, that's not where it's at. Let him who boasts boast in this, that you know and understand me. That's what you can boast about. Yes. So, I had a friend of mine that I grew up with since we were 11 years old. And when she became an adult, she had all of these things. Her name was Paula. Lived kitty corner right across the street since we were 11 years old. When we became teenagers, we went steady. She was my teenage crush, my sweetheart. It was puppy love, but come on, it's real to the puppies. But by the time we got into high school, we became actually more like brothers and sisters. And then I went out to the University of Utah and she missed me so much. She told her mom, she says, Mom, I miss Paul. What am I going to do? Go to the University of Utah. So she did. She flew out to the University of Utah. And I said, now, Paula, what are we going to tell people? Because they're going to think we're dating. And she goes, I know, because we touch each other so much and we roll around on the grass and we have all kinds of fun. And she goes, I know what we can do. It's perfect. I said, what are we going to do? She says, we're going to tell them we're twins, Paul and Paula. They'll never know. To this day, they don't know that Paula and Paul and I are not twins. But anyway, so we were double dating, and she was dating my fraternity brothers, and I was dating her sorority sisters. It was quite an adventure. And this is Paula and I. Oh, that's the potato chip story. We finished that one. Here we go. So this is Paula and I. I'm on the right. And we were just in our 20s there. This is a special event that we were going to, and we were wearing the University of Utah regalia there, and just having a lot of fun. And then we finished that year, but it was just our junior year. We still couldn't decide on a major. So I flew down to Arizona. Paul went back home to Alaska, and she said, Mom, what am I going to do? I'm just bored. And she goes, well, look, just to keep you busy, why don't you run for Miss Alaska? You'll get to meet new people, and you'll have a lot of fun, and you'll get some good experiences. And she said, oh, sure, okay, I'll do that. And she did. She ran for Miss Alaska, and she won. She became Miss Alaska. By the way, Paula and I had a little secret that I can tell you now. We told each other that when we got into our elder years, and we were both alone, either widowed or divorced, that we would marry each other and travel the world together. But we were not going to let the other one ever be alone. And so that was our little secret, that we knew we would never be alone, because I knew Paula would always be there. Anyway, she won, and so after having the crown, advertisers started noticing her, maybe to represent their product or their idea. So she soon became a fashion model, and this is her worksheet that fashion models have. And so she was doing a lot of modeling. Her family was very wealthy. And they said, look, Paula, instead of working for these agencies, why don't you open up your own and you hire out models to do the work? And that's what she did. So this is her being a ramp model, doing a fashion show somewhere. And then she got an offer to work in the White House in Washington, D.C. And so she accepted that offer to work in the White House. And now she was around people that you and I only see in the news, in the hallways and so on. And she was among the most powerful people of the world. And she was falling into the trap that Jeremiah warned about. Don't be bragging about your riches and your wisdom. By the way, she was an honor student in school, very intelligent. And so she was going into that world. And when I got down to Arizona, that's when I went to the crusade, got baptized. And after I got baptized, I came back home to Alaska and started sharing with all of my family and friends what I had learned. And of course, I ran right across the street like I did since I was 11 years old and said, Paula, look what I found. And she said, what is it? And I started sharing with her the Advent message. And she got excited. And she goes, wow, I've never heard this before. I said, I never did either. There's this group of people. They kept it well hidden, but I found it. So she started going to church with me. This time I'm on the left. So Paula and I were at, this is the Adventist church in Anchorage, Alaska, back in the day, on 7th and A Street. Wasn't that cool? 7th and A Street for the Seventh-day Adventist church. So we started going, this when I was a hair lip, mustache, and wake up. And so I decided to go back down to college because I didn't know what a Shadrach was. And so I said, Paula, I'm going to go to Bible college. There's one at Pacific Union College in California, and I'm going to go study for full time, but I'm going to keep praying for you. And I said, you keep studying your Bible and you keep growing. Well, I got off to PUC, and I was only there for a couple of months. And in the mail, I got this letter from Paula. Dearest Paul, just a note to let you know I'm busy and happy. I have accepted Christ as my Savior. I feel so good, safe, and secure with God. Now listen to this next statement because it's profound. I pray I will learn to love him and others as he wants me to. She got it, didn't she? God and people. That's it. I pray I will learn to love him and others as he wants me to. She had a song that she would listen to. Well, let me get back to that. What's doing that? Am I doing that? How do you know? Those beans you had, that's what it is. All right. So, okay. By the time Paula turned about 30 years old, she started developing serious complications from her diabetes. She was what you call a juvie brittle diabetic. She had it since we were 11 years old. And it was getting more serious now that she was in her 30s or in her late 20s. And and in the 30s, it was getting to a critical factor. Well, her parents sent her to the best medical research centers around the world. Money was no object for them. And they would take her to a medical center. And every time she went to another medical center, she would ask to speak to the people in the terminal ward, people who are dying of cancer, leukemia. And she would go and she would talk to them and she would pray with them. President Reagan found out what she was doing. He was the president at the time. And he knew Paula from working in the White House. He sent her a personal letter from the White House to encourage her that even though she was sick, she was reaching out to people who were dying. He signed the letter personally with his own signature. Well, University of Michigan had developed a couple of experimental surgeries to get the pancreas working correctly so the insulin would be developed properly. And they said, Paula, we've got a couple of experiments. We've had some success. Would you want to try? They said, absolutely. So they flew her out there. They did the first one. It failed. They did the second one, and it failed. Paula, there's no more medical science can do. You only have a few months left. Your life is over. She said, then let me speak to the people one last time before I leave the hospital. They brought her in on a wheelchair because she was so weak now. And she was wearing her crown, Miss Alaska. And she had the letter from the President of the United States. When they stopped the wheelchair, she held up the letter from President Reagan, and she said, this letter means nothing to me without Jesus first in my life. And she put the letter down. Then she removed her crown, Miss Alaska, and she said, this crown means nothing to me without Jesus first. And she put that on the floor. And then she pointed outside the windows, and she said, out there, they're all running around like there's no tomorrow, chasing after money, fashion, power. I know, I was out there. I was one of them. But I'm telling you, that's not where it's at. It's knowing Jesus. I'm going home now to die. and I will never see some of you again. But if you will accept Jesus as your Savior, I will see you again in a place where there'll be no more hospitals, no more doctors. They turned her wheelchair around. They flew her back home to Alaska. They set up her bedroom to be as comfortable as possible because she didn't want to die in the hospital. Round-the-clock nurses were taking care of her. Most of her hair had fallen out. She weighed less than 100 pounds. She was no longer the beautiful Miss Alaska that she once was, but she had a crown of life from Jesus that no beauty pageant could ever give her. She was praying especially for her mother. It was her only daughter. They had a very close mother-daughter relationship. And Paula would be in her room and she'd be reading her Bible and she'd be praying. And finally, because of complications from the diabetes, she went completely blind. And she saw the blindness as God's final blessing in her life. Now, why could going blind at the end be a blessing? Mom, could you please read the Bible for me? Yes, Paula, I'd be happy to. And every day her mother would come into the room. She'd open up the Bible and she would read to Paula. And Paula would pray, "Dear God, touch my mother's heart. Give her strength to go through our final goodbye." And one Thursday morning, Paula breathed her last. Her mother closed the Bible, walked across the room, reached underneath, and held her one last time and cried, "My baby, my baby. I have accepted Jesus as my Savior, and I will see you again in a place where there'll be no more pain, no more suffering, no more goodbyes." And I made a promise in my heart that everywhere in the world I traveled, I would share Paula's story because she can't be here to tell you. And if she were here right now, she would tell you, it's not out there. I had it all. It's knowing Jesus. And I believe one day you're going to see my twin sister in the kingdom of heaven. Amen. 2 Bible stories that I'm going to share with. I've got to write down that closing time again. It's 4:15. You got some more stuff coming. All right. What I want to do right now is to take a break. I want you to go outside, get some sunshine, get some air, and get some oxygen flowing so that we can finish strong in this last hour, okay? So go get your air.